Okay, we will call the April 8th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
Andre Spinelli.
Here.
Radhika Krishna. Here. Scott Poulos.
Here.
Jeff Ron.
Here.
Daniel George.
Here.
Greg.
Here.
Jared Gardner, Jim Winchester, and Brandy Eber are excused. Do you have a quorum? Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Commissioner Poulos, seconded by Commissioner Krishna. Is there any corrections, objections, or discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Any disclosures from the commission? Commissioner George.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to disclose that I was not present at the March 11th meeting, and so I will be abstaining from the consent agenda.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similarly, I was absent from the March 11th meeting and will be abstaining from voting on the consent agenda. Thank you.
And with those abstentions, we will not have a quorum to move the consent agenda, so we will save that for the next meeting. We will move on to the public hearings. First, I will read the procedure by which the public may speak to the commission at its meetings. After staff presentation is complete on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules of procedure. Petitioners, including his or her representatives, will receive 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. will receive 5 minutes, and individuals will receive 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. Any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director within 7 days of the commission's decision made on the record a written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 2103-050A4A. Commission recommendations to the Anchorage Assembly are not appealable. Following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may within 20 days file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with section 2103-050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. If the appellant is not the applicant, the appellant's notice of appeal shall include proof of service on the applicant. Can we please hear staff presentation on case 2024-0022?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a request for approval of modifications to the development master plan for Glacier City Center in Girdwood. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved of the original Glacier City Development Master Plan in early 2022. The site is a horizontal mixed-use development with 10 townhouse-style multifamily dwelling units and a commercial building that will have a micro distillery and a sandwich and coffee shop. The modifications proposed from the previously approved development master plan are changes from a 2-story to 1-story for the southeast commercial building that will have the micro distillery and restaurant. That reduces the square footage of that building. A new northeast commercial building for general retail space and a fitness center, a redesign of the parking lot, mostly to remove vehicle spaces, and then to update the landscaping to reflect the new commercial building and the new parking lot layout. The planning department did not receive any community comments. Reviewing agencies had no objections, but requested updates to the plans to match existing agreements. The department recommends approval of the modifications to the Glacier City Center Development Master Plan, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, the petitioner's presentation. You got to push the button, and then when you see the light, there you go.
Oh, gotcha.
Please
Got
state
me.
your name.
Okay. Hi, my name's Nate Ellis. I'm here with my wife, Elizabeth Ellis. We're with Glacier City out in Girdwood. We live out in Girdwood, and this is our development. I have a slideshow just to kind of a reference of what the changes in the master plan will be. See if I can't figure out this little clicker. So you guys previously approved the master development plan. It was a spot in downtown Girdwood. Very rare to have a lot of this size in the downtown center in Girdwood. So I just kind of go through of our initial plan. That didn't render very well. But our initial plan was to have a commercial building. It was going to be 2-story, over 8,000 square feet. And in doing that, it kind of crammed that building into the corner of the lot because we were required to have 79 parking spaces on site. 35 public spaces were from a MOA parking agreement, and that was from the, total in Girdwood, there's 206 public parking spaces within the Girdwood town site, and there was 109 spaces that are within 600 feet of this Glacier City project. So of the 109, 35 public spaces were given to our project. So that left 44 parking spaces that were on site. So really this project was driven by a gigantic parking lot. Currently, in the master development plan, there was 10 townhouses. We currently finished 5 of those townhouses. They're occupied, people living in them, and the other 5 are nearing completion, set to be completed about mid-May to June. So. Right now, we're in the design phase for the commercial site and the building, and like the planning department had commented, it's going to be a craft distillery mixed with a cafe and an eatery. So within this amendment, I know you guys probably all read the packet, so I don't want to take up too much time, save some time for questions, but it was essentially a reduction in the commercial building size. We went from a 2-story building to a single-story building, and that was driven by feasibility, cost, and then also the neighbors across the street, their only one complaint was that it was a 2-story building with a deck. So this kind of alleviates any neighborhood grievances that we had initially. The addition of a potential second building commercial site, which is critical to downtown. We're very limited on our available land to even develop. So, and then this also just equates to less asphalt, more green space, makes it easier to have some terraces for people to have outdoor space, connection to the pedestrians of downtown, and which is one of the driving forces of why the Imagine Girdwood, where they're trying to change their land use plan, that was some of their biggest priorities, was to do just that. This is an example of our landscape plan. It is in, this was just kind of a rendering of what it will be. This, of course, will have to go through the planning department and the permitting department. We're also, that's not a very good rendering either, but this is the right-of-way improvement. So on the front lot of that, it's along Hightower Road, and one of the requirements is to improve the right-of-way, so that will include a walkway that will connect all the pedestrians, but also 2 additional streetlights that will carry down kind of the, if you look down Hightower Road, it would match all the other streetlights and the walkway that you would see. So that's part of the development plan as well. So this is just an artist rendering. The building's not accurate, but kind of gives you an idea of the spot of this location within downtown. Just to the south of us is the Girdwood Post Office. And you can see the 5 townhouses that are, 5 that are currently constructed and the other 5 that are in construction now. So that's a horrible rendering. So we'll go back to this, and I would open up for any questions that you guys have or any comments.
Any questions for the petitioner? I see none. Oh. Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, through the chair, Mr. Ellis. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming down and
Yep.
talking us through some of the improvements. I noted there was a discrepancy around snow storage that the department had called out seeking clarification on. Could you show us perhaps on this rendering, I know it's on the plans, what the snow management might look like?
As far as snow storage?
Correct. Where are those locations?
Now, I believe on this section, we have it, and well, again, I apologize, it's not a very good, accurate representation, but the snow storage was taken care of on-site for each of these units, and that would be something that we would have to address definitely down through the planning process and going through the municipal traffic. Oh, and one thing that we had a suggestion from you, sir, was the addition of the EV charging stations. That's something that we're doing as well on site.
Noted. Good to see. Thanks. I'll follow up on my snow storage question. Just for the
Okay.
record, I do see on plan sheet A11, it looks like there's some snow storage called out in what looks like perhaps a semi-vegetated area, one adjacent to the proposed building, and then one that sticks out like that island there that we can see. So I was interested in that component, not the
Yeah.
existing condo units or townhouse units, but what you're planning to do on your site.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? I see no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
So we are going to open the hearing to the public testimony. Anybody wishing to speak, please come forward. Seeing none? Would you like to rebut that testimony? You have 5 minutes left. Okay. We'll close the public hearing. What is the will of the body? Motion by Commissioner Ron, seconded by Commissioner Christian. Would you like to speak to your motion? Or state your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move in case 2024-0022 to approve a modification to the Glacier City Center Development Master Plan subject to the conditions shown on page 4 of the staff report.
Now, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, thank you, Chair. Fellow Commissioners, I intend to support the motion. I think that this shows a level of responsiveness to the direction taken by the recent changes in parking, as well as enhancements to non-motorized travel, pedestrian amenities, and the EV charging stations as noted. I'll stop there and say I intend to support it. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? Commissioner Pulis.
Yeah, I also intend to support the motion and just add that removal of the second-story deck likely reduces the noise impacts of the surrounding properties, which was the one complaint ever heard, so thank you for that.
I see Commissioner Strike, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I intend to support the motion, but I want to go on the record that typically when we have cases before us from the Girdwood area, we usually typically see a large public turnout, comments, pro and con, And I want to go on the record that no public testimony was heard this evening on this topic, which I think goes to the strength of the proposed presentation before us tonight. So thank you.
I see no one in the queue, so we will call for the vote. That motion passes. Thank you. Now, would somebody like to make a motion to combine cases S12738 and 2023-0080? That's moved by Commissioner Krishna, seconded by Commissioner Pullis. Any objection? Hearing none, that motion passes. Can we please have staff's presentation in cases S12738 and 2023-0080?
Thank you. And just to provide clarification, I'm going to provide the staff report for the plat S12738, which will be followed by the conditional use. This is a request to subdivide one tract of land into 115 lots and 12 tracts, and variances from AMC 2108-040A1, dedication of streets, to dedicate tract 1, R2, R3, and R4 for private roads rather than dedicated right-of-way, and variance from AMC 2108-050G, curbs and gutters, to install type 2 rolled curb rather than type 1 vertical. This request is being made to allow for the phased development of land to provide 115 residential single-family lots in Eagle River. The case to follow, 2023-0080, is reviewing the conditional use for a planned unit development. This planned unit development will have a mixture of 6 housing types with lots ranging from approximately 3,000 square feet to 11,000 square feet. The site is currently vacant and zoned CER2MSL, Chuyak Eagle River Mixed Residential District with special limitations. The proposed subdivision meets the requirements of the CER2M district and is consistent with the zoning special limitations per AO 2020-71. This zoning district allows up to 55 dwelling units per acre through a conditional use for a planned unit development, and this proposed subdivision has a residential density of 3.9 dwelling units per acre. The developer is seeking to build compact housing with single-family homes on individual lots. The 2018 update of the Chuyak Eagle River site-specific land use plan designates this site as medium-density residential and places a focus on higher-density residential development on this tract. There were no objections by the reviewing agencies for the proposed preliminary plat with conditions provided. Full agency comments are detailed on page 2 through 10 of this staff report and found in attachment 3 starting on page 75. The petitioner is requesting variance from AMC 2108-040A dedication to provide private roads via dedicated tracts R1, R2, R3, and R4 rather than dedicated right-of-way, and a variance from AMC 2108-050G, curbs and gutter, to install type 2 rolled curb to create the subdivided design. The following standards must be met for street variances to allow private streets. Standard A is met. A private street is appropriate and preferable to a publicly dedicated street. This proposed subdivision and associated planned unit development is a creative use of a single tract of underutilized land to provide a variety of single-family homes on fee simple lots. The private street will include sidewalks throughout the subdivision as well as easements for the necessary utilities. Standard B is met. A private party is willing to and able to maintain a private street to public standard. Allowing the street to be constructed within the tract and associated easements allows for a more compact development. The private road will be maintained through a homeowners association. Standard C is met. A private street presents no conflict or obstruction to the orderly expansion of the public street system. The preliminary plat will provide access to the lots through a street design that provides compact development maintained to public standard through a homeowners association. The proposed private street will not conflict to the orderly expansion of the public street system. AMC 2103-240G3 requires the following to be substantially met for both variance approvals. Standard A is met. There are special circumstances or conditions affecting the property that strict application of the regulations would clearly be impractical, unreasonable, or undesirable to the public. There are some exceptional physical circumstances of this property that warrant the granting of this variance. This lot is partially affected by streams and drainage near the southern portion and has an overall slope of 15%. Concurrent with this plat and variance request is a conditional use for a planned unit development, which provides flexibility in lot configuration and minimum standards. Standard B is met. The granting of this variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare. The variance to dedicate tracts R1 through R4 as private roads rather than dedicated right-of-way is not anticipated to have any negative impacts to the public or surrounding neighborhood. Reviewing agencies have no objection to this request. Standard C is met. Dedication of private roads will not nullify the intent or purpose of the subdivision regulations or the comprehensive plans. Dedication and development of private roads rather than dedicated right-of-way permits the development of the subdivision and planned unit development, which provides much-needed infill residential housing in an area that is appropriately zoned and designed to support this use. Standard D is met. Undue hardship would result from strict compliance with the subdivision regulations and dedication requirements. Requiring dedication of public rights-of-way rather than private streets would negatively impact the developmentability of this subject parcel. Per AO 2021-71 S2, AMC 2108-050G, curbs and gutters, was amended to provide exceptions to allow Type 2 rolled curb on minor residential streets. While this subdivision does not meet the standards for the exception in AMC 2108, this code revision demonstrates the need for flexibility in curb type where Type 1 vertical curb is not required for safety and walkability in residential developments. Eagle River Street Maintenance is opposed to the variance from AMC 2108-050G to install Type 2 rolled curb, citing issues that rolled curb encourages on-street parking, oversized driveways, and snow storage issues. Private development and the Traffic Engineering Department have no objection to the variances or proposed preliminary plat. At the time of this writing, the Chugiak, Eagle River Valley, Birchwood, and CERAB community councils did not provide comment. Public comments are detailed in Attachment 3 and are focused on the conditional use for a planned unit development and will be covered in Case 2023-0080. The Planning Department recommends approval of variance from AMC 2108-040A1, subject to condition A1, approval of the variance from AMC 2108-050G, subject to condition B1, approval of the phasing plan subject to condition C1, and approval of the plat for 60 months phase subject to conditions D1 through 16, striking condition D10. Thank you.
Thank you. So in the matter of case 2023-80, this is a request for conditional use approval of 115-unit residential planned unit development on the same tract. So the planned unit development project intends to meet the planning objectives of the Chuyaki River Site-Specific Land Use Plan 2018 update and Chapter 10 of Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21. So the project will provide single-family development on fee-simple lots. The proposed development design is a result of the standards, recommendations, and objectives put in place by both Title 21 and that Chugiak Eagle River Land Use 2018 update. Specifically, the through connection from Harry McDonald Road to Mendenhall Drive, the creation of fee-simple lots, the strategic placement of utilities, use of privately maintained roads, retention of natural areas, protections of wetlands, and medium-density housing. So the special limitations that were placed on the property limit to no more than 115 dwelling units. And this project involves one zoning variance for design to building separation. There's quite a few findings and standards here, so I'll run through those. The conditional use findings, staff finds standard 1 is met. There are several policies in the Chuyaki River Plan that are relevant to the conditional use, such as Carroll Creek Tract 1, which is where this lies, compact development, promote efficient provision of public services and infrastructure. Carroll Creek Plan Objective 8, keep down per unit cost for new housing through 4 main strategies. I'll touch on those. That's focus on moderate density housing, reduce the cost to provide backbone infrastructure, and when practical, use privately constructed, privately maintained roads and infrastructure, which is less costly to install than comparable facilities. Carroll Creek Plan Objective 9, allow for flexibility in the layout of future residential developments. There's 2 land use goals of the 2006 land use goal A1A and A2C, which are just promoting infill development and efficient pattern of development. Staff finds condition 2 is met. The compact single-family residential development proposed in this PUD is consistent with the purpose of the CER2M district. There are no applicable district-specific standards for single-family. Staff finds condition 3, the use specific is met. So this application includes a plan sheet showing the front building elevation and floor plans for 6 different housing models in compliance with that requirement, including window placement, entrance location, variation of single, double, and double split garages at different planes of the building design. The house plans for this development also exceed the minimum requirement for roof planes and orientation. There is some new regulation for pedestrian frontage standards, table 2107-3. So the house plans submitted, they do exceed some of the requirements for windows and primary entrance doors. However, at that time, the application didn't address items B, C, D, and E and F in that table, so staff has placed a condition of approval to demonstrate that that pedestrian frontage standards are met, which I believe they can. They just didn't put it in the narrative at that time. Staff finds 4, 5, 6, and 7 are met. The site size, location, and topography are adequate for the proposed PUD. This housing development will have a residential density of 3.9 dwelling units roughly per acre, which is consistent with other developments in the area. The noise and light generated by the site will not have a negative impact on surrounding areas as is residential development. Staff finds condition 8 is met. The site plan shows all 115 lots accessing an interior street, which is called Carroll Creek Drive, that takes access off of Harry McDonald Road. And then it has private street spurs from the interior street. So the applicant provided a TIA and letter of acceptance from the municipal traffic engineer. I should note that in my staff report here, I put AMAT's, the Transportation Improvement Program planning effort. It has been found out that TIP was submitted, but it did not score high enough to be added to the TIP program for future funding. That was one of the goals there on page 40 of the Chuyak Eagle River Update Plan. See, standard 9's met. The site is located within land use, fire, police, EMS, and it'll have public water and sewer and all the utilities. So then we'll move on to the conditional use for residential plan unit development standards. Staff finds the intent appeal has been met. Carroll Creek is protected by stream setbacks that are on the southern portion of the property. Most of the housing in the area are single-family residential. There's commercial property to the west, and the residential tract of land to the northeast is undeveloped at this time and provides for 7 low-density, 1-acre dwelling units. However, the owner of that has a preliminary plat in with 7 lots for approval and is working with private development on the road design. So that connection there will be built hopefully soon, and this PUD will connect right through that to provide secondary access. We should, standard D there, the site plan will retain individual yards as well as common open spaces. Some of the minimum standards contains 29 acres, and the landscape plan shows 42% of the site as open space, which exceeds the requirement of 30. There'll be individual open space. That's the minimum 12% is that they're providing over 12%, almost double. No non-residential use is being proposed for this development. There will be sidewalks on both sides for a section of Carroll Creek Drive. There's some landscape buffer standards. There's an L2 buffer and L3 buffer. So the open space, it does meet the minimum planting bed widths on their landscape plan, but staff has placed a condition of approval to provide a landscape plan that meets that requirement for the plant materials. So that's for both the L2 and L3. Each house will have a heated garage, exterior electric outlet. There would be a homeowners association agreements. All the utilities will be installed underground. There's some dimensional standards associated with this. So height limitations, the maximum height in the CER 2M is 30 feet, and the houses will not exceed that. The PUD will adhere to the maximum lot coverage, not exceed 40%, nor will they not change the setbacks there. We'll move on to the matter of the variance. So the variance that they're requesting for design is AMC 2107 110G2 CV. So basically that states for a planned unit development, any two adjacent buildings within a PUD shall be separated from each other by a distance equal to 1/2 the height of the taller building. For instance, if we had a home that's 25 feet tall, it would require 12.5 feet. I'll explain here as I move through the variance standards. Staff finds A and B are met. So the intent of the regulation is for tall multifamily buildings to have sufficient separation to prevent crowding. In this case, the petitioner is simply requesting to meet the CER 2M side yard setback, which is 5 feet from the property lines. Each single-family home will have a minimum separation of 10 feet between them, which is more than adequate since these are not apartment buildings. Staff finds C and D are met. They will be modest-sized homes, and 10 feet is the common side yard setback for single-family detached homes. It'll match existing homes found in the CER 2M district. Staff finds E and F are met. This is not related to prohibition use in the zoning district. G has met. It will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. H is met as it's not applicable. So this variance is something this board has seen, I believe, in the past 2 PUDs, possibly 3 PUDs that were single-family homes. And they're just asking for the same setbacks that are required by the zoning district. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the department recommends approval of both the variance and the conditional use, subject to the 6 conditions there found on the staff packet. Thanks.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Pullis.
Do we understand where the 115 limit development came from? Like planning documents say we want medium density, which was up to 15, units per acre. And I'm just trying to understand why it's like 5 times, it's 20, up to 22, I think was what it was in R2M, if I read correctly. So why is it like 5 times less?
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Pullis, Dave Whitfield, Planning Department. During the master plan, the Carroll Creek site-specific land use plan update, density was an issue. And at that time, I think 115 with respect to this parcel was the compromise. There's another parcel that is included within the Carroll Creek plan that is slated for rural development. That's development that is 1 acre or greater. I think in this particular case, however, 115 was the compromise.
Commissioner Pullis, you have the floor. You may continue.
One more question on this memo we just got about not having to extend the road and the limit on 30 units. I know a little bit about it's the length of the road. You might require a cul-de-sac. It's the turnarounds. It's a combination of all that. Is this basically saying that other development's going to happen fast enough we don't think it's going to be an issue? Or are we just saying like the fire turnarounds are good enough for now until that happens? Do we know an answer to that question?
Through the chair, Mr. Pullis, the ultimate connection to Mendenhall would be through another parcel not owned by this developer. I think the timing of these 2 projects, in fact, the same development team is working on both projects, and we're fairly confident that the projects will be timed appropriately so as to create that secondary access.
It should also be noted that this project's all going to be on public water with fire hydrants, so that some of the issue was with fire. but it'll be on city sewer and water.
Fire's basically signed off, though, so we're good. I was just asking the question, like how that kind of came about. Thank you.
Commissioner Krishna.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on Commissioner Polis's first question. Could you just give us a little bit more context about the provenance of the special limitation? I'm just, I think following up on the first line of questioning, there's been a lot of news around HLB-owned parcels and trying to make sure that they meet housing needs and are used for the highest and best use. So just starting from the beginning, if we can hear a little bit about how we arrived at this number through the SL process, that would be good.
Yeah, through the chair, Ms. Krishna, it's a great question. I think at the time that the Carroll Creek site-specific land use study was done, the update, there were a lot of concerns from the community about the overall density of this site. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved specifically with that study. That was an HLB study. So I don't know all the particulars. I just know that the 115 is what the compromise in terms of density was, based on the concerns that were heard from the community.
Thank you.
Commissioner George.
Thank you. Through the chair, just for clarification, since we do have this memorandum that was delivered to members here with response from the Anchorage Fire Department, just for clarification, is this location to be served only by the Anchorage Fire Department, or is it also Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department? And was there any review with relation to the site or the proposal, or is it specifically just to whether or not a second access is needed? Thank you.
Through the chair, the fire did take a look at the turnarounds. There is, I believe, on the plat a resolve, but there is a sheet that shows the fire hammerhead turnarounds. So they did look at turnaround of equipment as well as the through connection. And I believe it's AFD fire, so I believe Chuyaki River Volunteer would fall under that, or at least fire does the review.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, through the chair. I have an interest in non-motorized movement throughout the proposed subdivision, so pedestrian and bike access, specifically to the commercial property Fred Meyer. I'm curious if the department had any discussions or thoughts on that and looking at how things are laid out in terms of non-car movement. Maybe I'm missing it, but it looks like a pedestrian would have to go all the way down to the old Glen and then double back to get to that commercial facility.
Thank you. Through the chair, I believe the petitioner can speak more to those pedestrian connections, but the site is fairly steep with a 15% grade, so I don't think a full connection to the commercial area was considered in this, but the petitioner can speak more to the pedestrian connections.
Commissioner Ron, are you finished? Commissioner Polis.
Just one more question. With 115 lots being the max allowed developed on this lot, does that mean they have no chance for ADUs? Is that out of the question?
Through the chair, Mr. Polis, ADUs do not count towards density, so that would not eliminate the possibility of ADUs.
And then just a follow-up, I mean, can we build an ADU in the backyard we can't get to really? I mean, do we see a lot of ADUs happening here?
Through the chair, Mr. Polis, if you want my opinion, based on the size of these lots, I think it would be unlikely that you'd see many ADUs. That being said, it wouldn't necessarily be prohibited.
Okay, I see no one in the queue, so we will move on to the petitioner's presentation, and I will remind you that your time is doubled, so you have 20 minutes.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Craig Bennett. That's B-E-N-N-E-T-T with S4 Group. The professionals with Triad Engineering and Kenny Engineering are here also to help answer any questions the board may have. And before delving into the details of our proposal, I want to express our gratitude to staff members. They have spent a great deal of time on this project and done an excellent job on both these cases, and we appreciate their effort. And we are in agreement with staff on the recommendation of approval. This application's purpose is to create a 30-acre residential planned unit development with a corresponding subdivision plat. It's essential to note that our proposal aligns seamlessly with the vision outlined in the 2018 comprehensive plan update. And over the past 8 years, this site has gone through 4 significant milestones. In 2016, the Municipal Heritage Land Bank embarked on a comprehensive public process to update the Chugiak-Eagle River site-specific land use plan. The HLB started out proposing 518 dwelling units on this parcel, but then reduced it to a maximum of 359 after many community meetings. And then at a public hearing in 2017, this board heard and then approved the comprehensive plan, but then decided to limit it to only 115 units total at that public hearing. Subsequently, the Plating Board granted approval for the subdivision plat in 2018, laying the foundation for the development of this tract. The third step in 2020, the Assembly approved the disposal by competitive bid of this parcel as per the Land Bank's intent, setting the stage for its purchase by the development team. The fourth step involved rezoning the tract from PLI to CE R2MSL as recommended in the comprehensive plan, which was approved by this board in 2020 with the 115 unit special limitation. And that brings us to being here tonight with a planned unit development and subdivision plat. And delving into the specifics of the planned unit development, our proposed design mirrors the layout envisioned in the 2018 comprehensive plan update exactly. It emphasizes key elements such as the through connection from Harry McDonald Road up to Mendenhall Drive, open space, the fee simple lot creation, strategic utility placement, privately maintained roads, trails, and environmental preservation. And by developing the site as a planned unit development, the site design can incorporate shorter roads, fewer feet of utility infrastructure, and provide more open space while meeting the 115 dwelling units. The establishment of a homeowners association ensures efficient snow removal, road maintenance, and landscape upkeep, fostering a well-maintained and cohesive community environment. And notably, our proposal exceeds the mandated open space requirement of 30% by having 43%. The proposed homes range from ranch style to 2 stories. They're all 3 bedrooms. The development was laid out with consideration for the topo, drainage, wetlands, and stream protection. The land use classification description on page 34 in the 2018 comp plan update states, provide for a range of single and multifamily housing in neighborhoods and offers a diversity of housing choices. Recommended residential uses include townhouses, multifamily, including row or cottage homes. We're proposing smaller and mid-sized single-family homes, such as the cottage homes. Objective 8 in the comp plan recommends private streets. We are showing 4 private roads that are 31 foot wide with fire turnarounds. These widths will allow on-street parking, and the main dedicated road will be 33 feet wide with an attached sidewalk with on-street parking. And sidewalks are being proposed along with trails. Asking for a design variance for building separation, we're requesting to adhere to the standard setbacks in the current zoning, and there are no department objections to this variance. And moving on to the plating case, this plating application's purpose is to subdivide Tract 1 into 115 lots and 12 tracts. This plat is based on the proposed residential planned unit development. 2 variances are sought, one for private streets aligning with the comprehensive plan's recommendation and another for rolled curb. Furthermore, our project offers a significant community benefit as the proposed dedicated road will serve as a crucial connection for AWU gravity-fed water reservoir, addressing vital infrastructure needs outlined in the comprehensive plan. And in conclusion, after review and coordination with staff, our proposal stands in full compliance with the 2006 Chuyak-Eagle River Comp Plan, current zoning regs, and most importantly, the 2018 Site-Specific Land Use Plan. Both staff and I recommend approval of both cases and the accompanying variance, and with that, I urge the board to approve our residential plan unit development and subdivision plat, and I'll reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 14 minutes and 39 seconds.
I was going
Are
fast.
there any questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Pullis.
I do want to second that the staff did a great job on the packet. It was very thorough, so thank you for that, guys. Just a thought here on snow storage and the little bit narrow roads. I know you guys are going to get an agreement to remove it, whatever. Has anybody thought about maybe just showing some snow storage areas on the plans? Did I miss them? Based on what's been going on lately, 6 feet of snow in the roads, you know, like if we just showed some snow storage, that would buy the local guys some time to maybe move it out of the way and not block the roads. Not a requirement, just a discussion.
Yeah, Commissioner. Two aspects to that. There's private road and public road. Private road are responsible for, the HOA is responsible for moving that snow themselves. And if you look, the average lot width is 51 feet wide, which is, the R2M allows, straight R2M is 50-foot wide lots. We also, the driveways are limited to 20 foot. Most of the driveways are 14 feet. That gives more than enough room for snow storage in between driveways.
What's the width behind the curb? I mean, there's a trail on one side, which is what width, right? And I'm talking about the little private streets too.
Private streets, there's a sidewalk on one side that's attached.
5 feet. So what's behind the curb on one side and behind the sidewalk on the other side to the edge of right-of-way? Which is a private right-of-way, but it's like 40 feet, right?
So it's 40 feet, and then the homes are back, I think typically around 25 feet from.
And there won't be any issues with them dumping like 5 feet of snow behind the sidewalk on what's kind of private
Well,
property?
a typical R2M has 50-foot wide lots. These average 51. So some are 45, and then some go up to, I think, over 60-foot wide.
Okay. I'm still just struggling to see where the snow would go behind the curbs and the sidewalk and not be on someone's private property. But, I mean, you guys are going to get an agreement to deal with it, I get it. So I'm
Yeah,
not
so
gonna
that's
push
the
too hard.
HOA.
Yeah.
That's different than the
That's what I'm talking
public.
about, not the 60-foot right-of-way, the real tight
Gotcha.
road. That's where I'm like, somebody's getting snow on their private property.
Yes.
But,
And the HOA, they have to do their own snow removal.
yep, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Krishna.
We had a few comments about lack of on-street parking. Could you speak to some of that?
Yes, I can. So, may grab Grant for this. So, there's parking required in the comp plan, but that's specifically meant for multifamily, and we're doing single family, and I believe we have 130 on-street. I'll pass this one off to Grant.
Hi, Grant Matthews with Trident Engineering. Through the chair, yeah, so when we first brought this development to the community council, there was a lot of concern for lack of parking. Originally, we had a narrower road section to try to reduce costs that didn't include on-street parking, only 24 feet wide. And so the development team got together after, taking in those comments, and we widened the street sections. So the main road through there is a 33-foot wide back of curb, which will allow for parking on both sides of the street. And then those private streets are 31-foot wide, which allow parking on one side. So the total amount of on-street parking is 130 spaces, which is a lot. And then generally, once you factor in the driveways and garages, that adds an additional 272 parking spaces for the units. So there's over 400 parking spaces for this development.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask another question too. And this is sort of a hard one, but can I just ask sort of broadly, was there consideration of asking for the SL to be amended or removed? And a development with a more dense scope or a different scope?
When we started this project was about 3 years ago, and it is more, the community is more in favor of density now, assembly and boards than it was then. We probably would have, but with the SL, or with the limitation also being in the site-specific comp plan, it would have been an uphill battle to change the site-specific comp plan and the special limitation on the zoning. Not really worth the risk, and so we moved forward with the 115 units at that time.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm going to follow up on previous commissioners' comments around on-street parking through the lens of Eagle River Street Maintenance's opposition to type 2 rolled curb. Their stated reasoning, as captured in the staff packet, is citing issues that rolled curb encourages on-street parking, oversized driveways, and snow storage issues. So can you please talk to us about the tension therein? Thanks.
Through the chair. So generally, the road complies, road width with the municipal standard street section. Generally, type 2 curb can allow for wider driveways, but really what it does is allows more flexibility. Because this is a planned unit development, we have some pretty specific requirements on, the locations of the driveways, and as Craig mentioned, they're limited to 14 foot and 20 foot. So on a average 51 foot wide lot with a 14 foot wide driveway, you have a lot of space between there, and I'm not sure if that was really kind of captured in street maintenance's review. Greg Soule with private development is here. He can kind of speak to that as well in terms of how they see that typically. But generally, we don't anticipate there being an issue maintaining these roads because of the wide width between the driveways.
If I may ask a second question and then pass the baton. Pivoting on my question to staff earlier around non-motorized movement throughout the subdivision. I heard Mr. Bennett in your initial remarks talking about acknowledging the context of the tracks as you kind of laid out the subdivision. And I've seen multiple references to social trails, and I'm struggling to see the connection between what exists currently in terms of social trails and movement and what I see on the subdivision proposal. So can you please help me better understand where that is?
Correct. I believe the social trail is mainly the trail on the east side of the property, between the proposed seven lots there on the east side and this property. And we're proposing a tract with a trail on it. And then we're putting in sidewalks, I think over 5,000 feet of sidewalk, and it goes up Harry McDonald, out to the Old Glen, and then down, you follow the sidewalk down to Fred Meyer. This property is above Fred Meyer, and there's a steep bluff with a slope easement on it, and putting a trail down the slope easement, problematic, one, so steep, but also because there's the easement there. So we instead put the pedestrian pathway on the existing sidewalk going out. And we are providing green space fingers down to the green space tract to the south. I think in the comp plan, they asked for 3 to 5, and I think we're showing like 7. So lots of access to the south tract.
I see no more questions. So we'll open the hearing for public testimony. Anyone wishing to speak, please step up and state your name. And let us know if you're speaking for yourself or on behalf of a group.
Just for myself. And then my name's Kyle Milkey.
Spell that, please.
Sure. I'm Kyle, K-Y-L-E, Milkey, M-I-E-L-K-E.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kyle Milkey. I'm here representing myself tonight, but I am a Eagle River Community Council Executive Director and also the President of Fire Eagle HOA, which is a HOA located across the highway from the proposed new subdivision on Harry McDonald Road. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the project as presented. While I understand some residents and neighbors have concerns, I believe there's a path forward that benefits both the community and the developer. I appreciate staff's comments, and I also wanted to highlight the staff packet, page 11, paragraph 3 of case S12738, where it did state that there were attempts to put improvements to McDonald Road on the tip, and while those failed, that it is, important that the it's unfortunate the application wasn't successful, but placing the entire financial burden on the redevelopment of the road and potential lighting upgrades on the developer severely decreases and is a huge detriment to the developability of this plot, and I appreciate staff for pointing that out. Let's work together. I believe a collaborative approach is best in trying to solve this problem, and there's been lengthy discussion to get us to the point where we're at. The medium density housing aligns with the city's growth plan and the needs of the community and helps to address a dire need for more affordable housing, and I think some of the creative solutions that we can address the traffic concerns. Perhaps exploring phased improvements, seeking alternative funding sources alongside the development could be options, all of which have been brought up by staff and by the developer other than co-funding, but that's something that they may be able to work out with traffic. I also wanted to take what extra time I have here to address some of the concerns that I've heard just in the last couple minutes of questions. As the president of an HOA in the area that does have guest parking and that we also maintain our own snow, through the last 2-3 years we have basically all but banned the parking in the guest parking spots and have really only used it for snow storage, and even with the huge snow dumps that we've had the last 2 years, we've more than been able to pilot inside of our lawns in between the units, and it sounds like there's potential for even more space here. While it is useful to be able to use the guest storage spaces as snow storage, that's really the best that they have, and considering that there's going to be more space in between these lots, I feel like that's more than fine. And same thing with rolled curb. We have no curbs, and it's wonderful to be able to just walk right off of your lawn and to be able to go and talk to your neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify?
Through the chair, Dave Whitfield, real quick. I just want to say that this is 2 cases combined. Members of the public get 6 minutes to speak rather than 3.
Would you like to use your extra 3 minutes? All right, we're ready.
I appreciate staff for pointing that out. I was expecting extra time, but I appreciate that I was able to pack everything in there. I'd still want to just reiterate the fact that, the rolled curb, I think, gives an excellent opportunity for more pedestrian access and for flexibility of use. As for non-pedestrian access to this area, I also wanted to highlight the location of the fire lake directly across. That is something that I've been able to really thankfully take advantage of just being down the street as well. That being a walking distance and not having to have all these people that are in these units potentially have to drive over there is a wonderful thing for the community to be able to increase access to that piece of land. And directly through that access to Fire Lake is access to the Glen Highway Trail for biking and such. And that I also wanted to highlight access to commercial properties. While not as direct, there is the Kalutna property located just down from the Fire Eagle HOA that, while undeveloped, if developed, which potentially this increase in density and increase in available customer base may spur future development, that would also be a potential future accessible commercial space. It being located so close to a grocery store allows for a lot of potential opportunities for pedestrians to be able to access a lot of the needs that they have. And for me, it was also especially great that it being biking distance to both post offices, both the Chugiak and the Eagle River Post Office, allows for a lot of access to a lot of the needs that are necessary for many residents, both in terms of daily chores as well as, there's potential work opportunities. They're also within walking distance. There have been talks through the Public Transit Department of also putting a bus stop here that could also alleviate some of the, concerns regarding parking. And I think that in between the apartment complex through Widener, the HOA that I'm the president of at Fire Eagle, plus this potential future development on the other side, it really makes a wonderful combination for increased density that could really lead to this kind of redevelopment of the area that I've really been looking forward to as I've been researching this project. And I really appreciate the developers' continued efforts in trying to make this move forward, even with the harsh stipulations that have been put on them. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, and we apologize. Okay, now we're ready for you, and let us know if you're speaking for yourself or on behalf of a group.
For myself, Sandra Quimby, Quimby. So I've scratched from 6 to 3 and back and forth. I've been involved with the Chugiak Eagle River Site-Specific Land Use Plan since its first public meeting in September of 2007, and this plan had extensive community involvement and input, and the initial plan represented a good compromise for all involved. It also reflected the community's desire to see high-quality development consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, which is in line with the Chugiak Eagle River Comp Plan update. I do not support the development as presented here, nor do I support the variances that are being requested by the developer. There's a number of concerns relating with the proposal before you as it relates to the plan and the update. And one thing I will vary from is there have been 2 presentations earlier on to our community council, neither of which included they had 20-foot wide streets. They did not say that, and I did not see this on the changes. So I'd like to make sure that's a correction, and that I thought that I feel the street should be built to municipal standards. They were also told there was no on-street parking, and we were also told that there was only parking in your driveway and your garage. So if you had a 1-car garage, you'd have room for 1 car in the driveway and 1 in the garage. So this is conflicting, and it's confusing to us from hearing that at the community council. The proposed rolled curbs also have that ability to create those oversized driveways. That's a concern. Then the snow issues with that. And we have other neighborhoods in Eagle River where they literally run out of room to put the snow from just their driveway as they're shoveling because of the narrow lot sizes. So that relates to also to the lack of space between the housing. The snow storage is an issue, and the trail access is outlined for the development is inadequate to meet the 2018 update because they call for providing for a well-developed pedestrian circulation system for the site as a whole. And they talk about accessing the school, the Harry J. McDonald Center, the commercial areas, the Old Glen, the Carroll Creek open space, and any future access to Chugat State Park. And what they've provided there is just very limited little, a few limited places through the houses. And I'm concerned about the turnarounds for the fire vehicles and some of the fire concerns. While the developer is pointing to some aspects of the plan that they feel that they are meeting, they're ignoring other critical components, and to call your attention to them, the plan calls for keeping down per unit cost, yet the developer is proposing units starting in the low $400,000 range, and that's not affordable housing by any means. With the median income for a household in Anchorage just under $96,000 as of 2022, potential buyers in this income range would fall short by more than $24,000 to qualify for a loan on the cheapest unit in the proposed development, and assuming that's the smallest, that's an 854 square foot unit. The houses in this plan are small. They range from 854 square feet to just under 19 square feet. Many of the lot sizes don't meet minimum municipal standards, and the lots vary from 3,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet, and they should meet municipal standards. And the plan, as it's stated, focuses on keeping down per unit costs, and one of the ways it says, quote, focus on moderate density housing, including duplexes, triplexes, townhouses, apartments, and single-family homes with accessory dwelling units, close quote. Instead of doing this, the developer has chosen to build single-family homes exclusively. For him to build the maximum number of units allowed, he's requesting variances in these building separations, and that's not really a valid reason for granting a variance. Throughout the plan, the admonition is to, quote, allow for higher densities in the western portion of the project area and lower densities in the northeastern section to better match the character of the adjoining existing neighborhood. However, and that's a close quote, in the proposed plan, the smallest housing unit, 854 square feet, is right next to the large lot portion that was sold earlier. That's under development. And this will have some effects on the character, and we also have some concerns about the developer's reliability, because already he's had to have a stop work order issued because of work done without proper permitting. The developer told the Chugach Community Council at one point that there would be a structural engineer to design the homes, but we don't have any reassurance of that. And so I would encourage you not to approve the plan as presented or the requested variances. In the words of the 2018 plan update, I'd ask you to please encourage the developer to, quote, establish and require compliance with a set of residential development standards to ensure these are high-quality developments and good neighbors to the existing residential areas. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify on this matter? Are you speaking on behalf of yourself?
Can I speak on behalf of two entities? Or do I have to just choose one?
Well, who do you actually speak for is the question.
Well, you already have my resolution. My name is Darrell Parks. I'm the president of the Chugach Community Council.
Then you could speak on behalf of the community council.
Okay, because I'm also one of the 3 members of the Board of Supervisors for the Chugach Volunteer Fire Department.
I don't think it buys you any more time, but you will get the 10 minutes
I
for the group.
don't need the time. I just want, because I want to cover some different topics, and I just want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn.
Okay, well, we'll give you the 10 minutes. You can define who you're speaking on behalf of.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Darrell Parks, and I'm a community member as well as those other hats I wear. Daniel, it's good to see you. I want to talk about the fire issues to start with. The turnarounds, although they're there, they're relatively small, and my fear is that what will happen is because the HOA is going to be responsible and there's no street snow storage. We've talked about snow storage for driveways, but there's no street snow storage, and if you continue to pile that up, it's going to make the yards disappear. So my fear is that stuff's going to get pushed into that turnaround area where we need to have access for fire apparatus. If you're not familiar with the Chugach Fire Department, it's an all-volunteer department. It saves our community a lot of money. But typically what you'll see is we'll respond with more than one apparatus and usually a tender. A little bit of concern because I haven't seen the numbers yet. Although this area is going to be served with water from gravity-fed sources, it's on the very fringe of that line where gravity is available. So having adequate pressures and volumes at fire hydrants is a concern for us. The chief actually made comment in the Birchwood Community Council meeting last month that he would probably end up backing apparatus into there so he could get apparatus out. So it's concerning for response times and things like that. So that's part of the issue. Another concern I have is that you have, the way this property is laid out, you have those narrow streets, and particularly with the variance of the rolled curb. I appreciate the fact that they have gone back and re-looked at that and widened those streets to 30 feet. But the roll curb does still encourage people to park, and when you get snow and vehicles in there together, it's going to make snow removal very difficult. And then that leads to more problems with getting apparatus into the neighborhoods should there be a problem. Granted, I'll be honest with you, most of our calls aren't for structure fires or things like that. It's mostly response for medical, but that issue is still there. So with the other issue I had was with the lot sizes being the minimum, in some cases, down to 3,000 square feet. It's kind of strange the way it's laid out because you'll have a 3,000 square foot lot and right across the street you have a 10,000 square foot lot. And I don't know what drove that to be such a wide variance in there. That's something that the developer can talk to. But the last concern was when this developer came to us, this property's been through a lot of iterations, as you've heard, within the comprehensive plans and those issues. The original developer who bought the land came to us in the community council and talked about putting in senior housing, assisted and unassisted. We were all for that. But that developer left the state, and one of his prior employees bought the property and is now developing into this development. I don't see this development as being great for our community. I don't think it addresses the need for multi-residential housing and lower prices. The pricing on this structure on this one, at least as we were told, was starting in the neighborhood of $400,000. It may be less with that 850 square foot house, but I don't think it answers the mail on the housing shortage that we're dealing with. I think what it looks at is it maximizes profits. That's Daryl's opinion. So anyhow, I'd hope you consider just not approving the variances for the rolled curbs for the reasons I talked about. And if you, the lot size, the building variance for 10 feet, I don't see that as being a big issue, but I don't think this development fits the needs of our community. So thank you for your time.
You have more time left, but I see no questions. So I don't know if anything...
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Can I reserve my time to rebut?
No.
Okay. Then I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, there's a question. Commissioner George.
Good evening, Mr. Parks. Since you mentioned you're with Chugach Volunteer Fire Department, I just thought I would ask, there's a map in the packet of the roads and sidewalks where it does show the fire turns, and since you are familiar with the apparatus and how they navigate those.
I'm sorry, sir, I'm having a hard time.
Sorry, I'll speak into the microphone a little better. The map that shows the fire turns, the map has green shading, which I would presume would be some kind of natural vegetation or something like that. It doesn't necessarily show it as paved or graveled or that sort of thing. Given the weight of the apparatus that need to make these turns, is there a standard that a fire turn, does it have to be like a packed D1 gravel typically, or what is it that you expect?
I think typically they're paved with probably something in the neighborhood of a 6-inch base and a 4-inch cap, 2 lifts.
Okay. And maybe that's a question better directed to the department, but I just figured since you are the expert on the issue, I would ask you.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the turnarounds, but as far as how they're constructed, but I do know they're typically constructed to handle the heavier load of the apparatus, just as the roads are. It should be similar in structure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good.
See no further questions at this time.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak to these cases?
We do have telephonic testimony if you're ready for that.
We are ready.
Hi, is this Bart?
Yeah. Hello? Yep.
Bart, this is the Planning and Zoning Commission calling for your testimony on case 2023-0080 and the plat S12738. Are you testifying on behalf of yourself or a representative of a group?
Myself.
Okay. The public hearings were combined, so you'll have 6 minutes to provide your testimony. If you could say your full name and spell your last name, you can begin. Bart, if you could say your full name for the record.
Yeah, okay, so there seems to be a delay between what's on Zoom and what's going on here by about a minute and a half. So let me turn off the Zoom because I'm hearing you talk to me like you did 2 minutes ago. Anyways, my name's Bart Quimby, Thomas Bartlett Quimby, Q-U-I-M-B-Y. You heard from my wife earlier. And I'm also opposed to the development as planned. Okay, let me turn off the Zoom because I'm hearing you talk to me. Okay, I just turned off Zoom, but hopefully you're hearing me. But there are a couple of things I should point out. We've been involved in this plan, Chugiak Eagle River plan, from the beginning, and the intent was to balance the needs or the character of the existing neighborhood that we're in, which is up the other side of Harry J. McDonald from this development, and also the community's need for additional housing. And we don't think that this particular plan does that. The price points that are giving don't put it in reach of most of Anchorage's population. And so it's not meeting that need. And the lot is very challenging. It's very steep. It's got it's not an even slope. There's things going on, and the reason why there's so much open space on the plat is because they can't get to all of the land that's in there. But what would probably better serve the needs of the community would be more of the townhouse, apartment building, things like that, which would meet the housing needs of the community. I don't agree with the guy from the Fire Eagle subdivision that everything's happy within walking distance. Fred Meyer is about the only thing that's within walking distance of anything, which, our food source is important to us. But the intent of our plan here was to provide moderately priced homes that were compatible with the developments that have been there for a long time. On the one side of the road, you have a Fire Eagle, which is fairly high density. And the other side of the road where this is being built, it's traditionally been large lot residential. And that's why we came up with a compromise for the 115 units for this, is that we would find somewhere in between that. But it will change the character of the neighborhood, and we're not particularly interested in that. However, recognizing the need for more housing, I don't think that this particular development really addresses that. The rolled curb, I've seen several neighborhoods that have that, and the people just all of a sudden start using their front yards as parking areas. It's just not compatible with keeping people in their driveways, and so I'm opposed to the variance there. The variance for the height or the separation of the buildings, I think part of that is not only just giving access to the back of the lot and other such things, but there's also probably a safety issue there. If you did have a fire, separation is an important thing. I've sat through several professional presentations on fire separation recently as a structural engineer, and there's a lot of recommendations, and if you don't meet those, then there's some construction things about creating fire-resistant walls between the buildings, which I don't know is going to be enforced if they get this variance. But anyways, long-term, the bottom line here is I'm not convinced that this particular development meets the intent of the plan that we spent years in working on and negotiating, and we're not particularly pleased with the direction that it's gone. And I guess that's my testimony.
Thank you. No questions?
See no, oh, there's a question from Commissioner Pulis. You did hear that hang up?
Did he hang up?
Is he
I'm
still
here.
online? Oh, okay, no, sorry. Commissioner Pulis.
Mr. Quimby, I was gonna, I was trying to save this one for myself at the end, but I'm just gonna ask you because I know you can take the shots. So I Googled today how many homes are available between the value of $300,000 and $400,000 in Eagle River. There was one. And so while we all talk about costs of housing, there's no houses available in anything I could afford currently in Eagle River. And so I thought I'd point that out to everybody, that I found that statistic today. It doesn't say low income, it says, medium density affordable housing. So I also struggle with that comment, but that's the way I kind of read that at the end. There you go, I'm done.
Right. Well, the character of the neighbor, of the community is not low income. But for one thing, low income people need to have access to employment and other things which are not available in Eagle River. We looked at this back when we were doing the plan. It called Fred Meyer and, find out how many open positions you have, how many people do you hire, talk to other businesses around. There's not nearly enough employment for low-income people in Eagle River at this time. So Eagle River, like it or not, is a bedroom community for mid-range professionals.
Thank you for your testimony.
Okay, I see no questions in the queue. So we'll take the next caller.
Hello, hold on a second. Hello there.
Hi, is this Dan Sadler?
This is Dan Sadler speaking. Who's this?
This is the Planning and Zoning Commission calling for your public testimony on case S12738.
Oh, very good. Thank you, ma'am. Can you hear me okay, for one thing?
Before we begin, are you calling on behalf of yourself or a representative of a group?
Just as myself.
Okay, you'll have 6 minutes to provide your testimony. If you could state your full name for the record, you can begin.
Surely. And can you hear me okay, ma'am, just for a sound check here?
Yes.
You can hear me. Very good. Well, hello there. I'm not exactly sure who I'm speaking to, but I believe it's members of the Municipal Planning and Zoning Committee. Good evening. My name is Dan Sadler. I'm the state representative for House District 24, which includes the location of the proposed Carroll Creek development that is the subject of this hearing. I'm calling to let you know that, speaking for myself, I have some significant concerns about the request for the developer of this project for variances, which I understand is the purpose of the meeting tonight. The one to allow them to build houses be closer together than the zoning currently allows, and one to have the development served by private roads instead of a dedicated right-of-way, big street. I'll briefly list my concerns of the variances in the development. My first concern is that the proposed development calls for quite narrow streets, about 20 feet wide, which is pretty darn small. I'm concerned that there appears to be inadequate parking. There's no on-street parking on these narrow streets, and only parking in the garages, which may be, just one, maybe two car garages. It appears that the developer seems to be counting on residents and their guests to have overflow parking at the Coach Mack Center, which is not appropriate. That's not what it was built for. There's often hockey games and events that take up all the spaces, and that's just not a good way to plan for parking. The road that would access Carroll Creek, and I used to live just in that same neighborhood, so I know, the Coach McDonald Road is the driveway. It's not really a road, and it's certainly not designed for the amount of traffic that this fairly dense development would generate. I understand that there would just be sidewalks on one side of the street, which makes it less pedestrian friendly. There is a lack of snow storage, and we've seen the last couple winters just how big an issue that can be. Without some place to have a snow dump in each neighborhood, it's really costly. It's expensive to have to go in with front-end loaders and dump trucks and remove snow from narrow streets. We've seen in Eagle River how some cul-de-sacs have had to pile snow in the middle, and then when snow builds up in areas of insufficient snow storage, it costs a lot of money for the Chugai Perch Eagle River rural road service areas. It does not appear that there's any space in this proposed development for fire trucks or ambulances or to turn around should there be an emergency. And being built in forest on an uphill slope, there's a chance for fires, and it may be very important for trucks to be able to get up there. And I'm also concerned that the access to the Chugach State Park, there were some suggestions by local residents about ways to creatively allow access to the Chugach State Park, and those seem to have been falling on deaf ears. So I will also say I'm kind of concerned with the interactions between the developer and local residents. Having followed this issue for quite some time, I've been the representative for 10 years. The initial proposal was to have a senior development, senior housing, which is a good thing, and affordable housing, which is a good thing. But the proposal has shifted to houses of $400,000 plus, which is clearly not aimed at low-income people or seniors. The developer had committed several times to providing information to residents about the progress of the planning and about issues, but my understanding is they have not followed through in that and have not been especially forthcoming with local residents who are involved about the impact on their neighborhood. And they've committed to responding to concerns expressed by our local community council, virtual community council, but have not followed through. So if there's concerns about the public with the interactions with the developer, those I think are justified. And I think it's important for the Planning and Zoning Committee to listen to the local residents who live here, are nearby, our neighbors, and their concerns for how this development is planned, the conduct of the developer in dealing with them, and the ultimate impact on the quality of life, public safety, sanitation, traffic, general well-being in that neighborhood. So, I guess I'd say I would encourage the Planning and Zoning Commission to look with a very, very sharp eye at the request for variances that the developer is asking for. Certainly Eagle River is a great place to live, and I don't want to shut anybody off, but development's got to be done right. We have a special title and a special chapter in municipal code for our community, and it's important that the hard work of land planning that has been done is respected, honored, and followed. So that is about the end of my comments. I appreciate the opportunity to deliver them, and appreciate you listening and taking time to listen to the local residents about this Carroll Creek development. I think that puts me at about 5.5 minutes, which is just under the 6 minutes. So thank you very much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you. We have a question from Commissioner Krishna.
Thank you for your testimony. We have discussed some of the questions and concerns that you've brought up. I do want to inform you that it does appear that you're referring to the version that was presented at the Community Council, and it looks like that's changed. The road widths seem to be closer to 33 or 40 feet in the version that was submitted to us. I'm sure the project team would be happy to follow up with you and provide you with that most recent copy of the submitted plans. I do have a bit of a question, which is to ask specifically, would you say that if the variances were not granted, would you support this request, or do you have larger concerns about the design or suitability or public process?
Commissioner, I'm sorry, this request, which I want to make sure I know what you're referring to.
Oh, just the case in general, yes, the project.
the project. I would want to make sure, again, that I had the most recent information before I could come down on one side or the other. It's kind of a moving target, kind of moving goalposts. So I might reserve the hard yes or no. But what I will say is that I would be concerned and wanted to make sure I knew how things were actually going to happen, and not just the most recent iteration, because things appear to change. And once they're put in the ground, once the streets are laid, once the houses are built, it's not going to change. So it's important for the local residents to know. So if you can give me a commitment that what I will see is a final plan and how it's going to happen, then I can give you a firm answer. But until then, I really can't. Sorry. Are you still there?
I believe what she was getting at is we have the project in front of us, and there's some talk about the design variances being of concern. In fact, you alluded to that. The question was, without approval of the variances, would you support the project, or is it just too vague for you to even give us a straight answer on?
I think, as I said, I would want reassurance and comfort that what you are asking me to opine on is what would actually happen.
Thank you. We are the Planning and Zoning Commission, so we are not the development team, but we will do our best. Thank you. I see no further questions.
Thank you for your testimony.
Very good. Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, is this Debbie?
Yes.
This is the Planning and Zoning Commission calling for your testimony on case S12738.
Good.
Are you calling on behalf of yourself or your representative of a group?
Myself, but I am going to be reflective of discussion that happened in my community council. I chair Birchwood Community Council. But I'm not speaking for the council because we did not pass a resolution.
Okay, thank you. We've combined case S12738 with 2023-0080, so you will have 6 minutes to provide your testimony. If you could say your full name for the record, you can begin.
Okay. Can you speak louder by any chance, or is that...
We will be conscious of speaking into the microphone.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
We will do our best.
Okay.
And if you can state your full name for the record, you can begin.
Okay. Now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Debbie Osiander. I am a longtime resident of Chugiak Eagle River. I'm also the current co-chair of Birchwood Community Council. My comments today are going to reflect a lot of discussion I've had with a lot of people over the last few months. This case, the whole Carroll Creek project, has a big history with our area. We actually amended our comp plan and introduced a special planning section to deal with it because there was so much controversy when the Heritage Land Bank got rid of the property. I have several main concerns that I want to share with you, mostly centering on the Harry McDonald Road. Most of the comments that I've heard were concerns about the impact of that road. For those of you, at our community council meeting, we asked a lot of pointed questions and we got conflicting information. There was never a presentation at Birchwood Community Council, just at Chugiak. I tried to summarize what I saw on the record online, but the developer attended our meeting and said that that information was incorrect. So we had never seen the TIA. The concern about the McDonald's Road is it is actually not even on an official right-of-way, as I understand it. It is on a public use easement and was developed as a driveway. It's about 20 feet wide. And so to have a development coming in with 31-foot wide roads channeling down the Mac Road is concerning. For those of you who are not familiar with it,
On days that Chugiak High Hockey plays Eagle River Hockey, you cannot get up that road. It is completely blocked. Additionally, the parking lot at the Mac Center is frequently full. The concern from our road board is this has a section that says that snow will be hauled out. The Eagle River Road Board has taken a strong stance against hauling snow. That's one of the reasons that we have extended sides of the road on a lot of country lanes so that snow can be piled. We have limited ability to haul snow. As far as I know, and I double-checked with our road board representative for Birchwood, they are unanimously not going to agree with hauling the snow for this development. At the community council meeting, we were told, oh, don't worry about it, the plat has snow storage lots. I still have not seen that, and it appears from the document I read this morning that that is not the case. Additionally, this area is supported and protected by the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department, not the Anchorage Fire Department. The fire chief of Chugiak was at our meeting, and we specifically asked him how the narrower roads up there will do for his rescue equipment, and he had strong concerns. He said that he didn't think he could turn around in there, and that he thought that the roads, particularly if homeowners were parking on the roads, it would be inaccessible. I did see that there is somebody from fire who's analyzed it. I seriously doubt that was the Chugiak Fire representative who analyzed it, saying that they wanted the restriction put so that it was only half developed until the Mac Center Road was connected to the other side until it was not the sole access in and out. Additionally, our park board had strong objections to this dedication of additional 60 feet of roadway along the Mac Road. They thought that it would hamper their gate and have problems with the drainage, and so they object to it. So basically, you've got a development here that the Eagle River Park Board objects to, the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department objects to, the road board objects to, and certainly my community council had a flurry of questions that remained unanswered. So because of that, I'm going to ask that you do not approve this unless the developer is required to upgrade the Harry McDonald Road to collector standards. It is inadequate right now for what's being proposed. Additionally, for those of you who aren't familiar, historically, developers in Chugiak Eagle River have had to shoulder the costs of infrastructure improvements themselves in the past. It's been the historic way to go. And so it seems to me that this developer is being given a free rein here, and it's going to be problematic in the future. With that, I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Osiander? Seeing none, I have one. My question is regarding the road and the Harry McDonald Center. We've had comments that alluded to the homes proposed here aren't affordable enough. I've also heard that the road is inadequate with 0 houses. And so the question is should the future residents of this proposed subdivision pay to fix that road? Or would that be the owners or users of the Harry McDonald Center should pay to fix that road? I guess, what do you think?
Well, the road is currently, as I understand it, maintained by our park board because it's a park. The Harry McDonald Center is a park service facility. I would go back to the practice in Chugiak Eagle River that says if a development goes in, the developer has to pay for necessary infrastructure. I know that Cluton Corporation had to do that in the past, and I know that that occurred in some developments up on South Fork. It's not going to be safe, and you can't just say, well, we'll dedicate the road and that will make it all better. You're basically having a large quantity of homes channeling into a driveway that's 20 feet wide, and that has also impacted by periodic hockey rink crazies and kids walking to school and kids being dropped off at school. It's not safe. So I'd say whoever develops the property, they've got to continue that on. I'm not going to speak to if there should be lower income homes or upper income homes. That's not my purview. My purview and my comment here is strictly public access, and you're basically, if you approve this, going against the wishes of our park board, our road board, and our fire department, as I read it.
Thank you.
Yep.
That concludes telephonic testimony.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? Last chance. Seeing none, we'll close. Well, nope. We will ask the petitioner for their rebuttal.
Craig Bennett, and I just want to thank everyone that spoke, and I'll do my best to address some of the concerns and questions that I heard. And I'll start off by saying this plan does match the 2018 comp plan almost perfectly. If you look at the comp plan, I believe page 34 matches our plan exactly. And I'll start with the variance for the building separation. We're just asking for the current zoning, which is R2M, straight R2M zoning, has setbacks of 5 feet on the side, and we're just asking to match current zoning. The PUD does have, like staff stated, higher requirements, but it's mainly meant for multifamily, tall buildings separation, and these are single family, typical R2M. And I'm going to hand it off to Grant to speak to some of the other questions.
Yeah, Grant Matthews again with Triad Engineering. So I'll try to answer some of the concerns that were brought up. Commissioner Poulos, I know you had mentioned you looked at the cost of new homes in Eagle River, or homes for sale. I did the same. Currently, if you filter for new construction listings, there's 24 homes in Eagle River for sale. The lowest price one is $543,000. That's a 1,670 square foot single-family home on a 6,000 square foot lot, and the average is $644,000. There was an article published in the Alaska Economic Trends magazine for 2022. People pay a 38% premium that year for new construction is what was found, and a lot of that is driven by some of these discussions we're having right now. Upgrades to Harry McDonald Road, going with a type 1 curb instead of a type 2 that allows more flexibility. Basically any other off-site improvements, going with not private roads, which allows some more flexibility. So, if we're really trying to provide a product that someone can afford, you have to get creative on some of these items, and that's the intent of the variances. If I know one of the questions that was brought up was fire turnarounds, you can look at page 53, and those are kind of shown. It's difficult to see on the 8.5 by 11, but all of those hatched fire turnarounds are actually like code compliant fire turnarounds with the Anchorage Fire Department. They look small there, but they do meet the dimensional standards for a turnaround. And those would be constructed, with an engineered base capable of supporting an 80,000 pound vehicle. So there's also some snow storage concerns, which obviously on a year like this, that makes sense. It was an exceptional year for snow. And generally, it's just difficult to plow snow when people are parked on the street. That doesn't mean we should prohibit people from parking on the streets, and this development, when you have on-street parking, that's just it. There's on-street parking to deal with. Going with a type 1 curb would not prohibit people from parking on the street. If it's a type 1 curb, people are still allowed to park on the street generally. The good thing about the private tracks and the private roads is that because that snow would be managed through an HOA, it does allow some flexibility for the HOA to actually designate snow storage areas within their association, whereas the road service or the Eagle River Street Maintenance cannot just pile snow up on private property. So there is a little bit of flexibility there that should help, and there's also some large open space tracks at the end of the private roads that grant some space for snow storage. I know there was a comment mentioned about the only thing that, that's worth walking to is Fred Meyer there, but I can imagine there would be quite a few residents that would enjoy walking to school or to the rec center, both of having those in close proximity, as well as the open space, Carroll Creek, the track to the south. In terms of Harry McDonald Road, there's a condition from private development on page 17, condition number 12, that states that we will analyze that road and verify its capability for supporting traffic. It's not just a free pass. There's going to be some analysis done on that to make sure that it can support the proposed development. And then we would be dedicating right-of-way as part of that as well. And then there's also AWU has plans for this. We're putting in a 12-inch water line as part of this development. That's oversized as part of AWU's capital improvements for providing redundancy for their system. So that's incorporated into the plan as well. And all of that will get reviewed for water pressure and making sure that the hydrants have enough flow for fire suppression. Happy to answer any other questions from the board.
Commissioner George has a question.
Hi, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm looking at the map here, and I'm wondering, I don't know if you can answer this on behalf of the petitioner, but so Harry McDonald Road is proposed to be a public right-of-way eventually through this process. It's contemplated. And we've got private roads, and I'm just curious what's the thought process behind making Carroll Creek Drive a public road within a private Ukiah, common interest community? It seems like you could avoid the entire process of having to apply for variance if this were private.
The variance is actually for those private tracks so that spur off of the main Carroll Creek Drive. So the Carroll Creek Drive is publicly dedicated. If those spurs were also publicly dedicated, then there would not be a variance. But because of the topography, it's kind of this strange triangular shaped tract, and there is some topography to deal with. So going with those 40-foot tracks on the private roads instead of a 60-foot right-of-way just shrinks, it allows more space to be dedicated to the lots, and it allows them to fit in there better. But no, in a perfect world, you would dedicate the 60-foot, but the private roads, and as Craig mentioned, that is actually listed in the special, the land use plan, saying that gives flexibility on a site like this that has some constraints.
Thank you for clarifying. And we also heard from some folks that testified this evening that consternation or just questioning of why the disparity in lot sizes. I don't know if that has to do with the stream setbacks on some of the adjacent lots, or if there's any reasoning behind why that is.
Yes, I'll answer the previous question. The comp plan shows a public dedicated road through the through connection with private off, so that's why we're doing it, just matching the comp plan there. And then the lot sizes is just to provide more variety of price points for potential purchasers. Some bigger lots and some smaller lots, and then multiple types of homes, just to allow variation.
Okay, so that's an elective choice then.
There is topography that also feeds into it, and having a stream setback down below, staying away from that, so you get a little bit wider lots where just the topo forces it to.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Strike.
Thank you, and through the chair. My questions come back to, again, the Harry McDonald Road. Real easy question. Is that a collector road?
So.
Yes or no?
It meets the standard for a rural collector based on geometry. So it's 23 to 27 foot wide pavement. It has a detached 8 foot wide pathway. It meets a rural collector standard based on what we've seen so far.
Rural collector standard. And as opposed to a normal collector standard road that might differ with what type of
So that's
additional-
usually just depends on where you are in town, but it meets a collector standard based on geometry, yes. It's not, a driveway would not have a detached 8 foot pathway. And a driveway would be 16 feet wide, not 24 feet wide.
So it meets the standards for use or meets the standards for the quality of the build?
Well, that's what we have to find out based on condition 12. We haven't done soil boring, so we can't verify at this point, what the road base is or anything like that. We just have the geometry to go on at this point.
So my concern is that I want to make sure we don't have the cart before the horse. There's a lot of questions that you're going to do as you quote, "Don't worry, we'll be analyzing it. We'll be reviewing it." That some decision will be made in the future, yet we hear from public testimony, we hear from the community councils, a grave concern regarding McDonald Road, its usage and its classification as a collector road, yet we're not addressing anything other than to say, we're going to review it. Should the review have been done before we came here tonight?
Well, so that condition, basically, the condition is there, we're not going to get a sign off without doing that analysis. And we don't, getting out there, there's survey that has been done, but actually doing a geotechnical investigation within the road bed is kind of past the scope. You wouldn't do that before you have your planning entitlement in place.
But you're going to do an analysis, you're going to say, here's what we found. Somebody has to review that, either agree or not agree. And tonight, we're here before the commission to approve something that we don't know if it's going to be in place. And we've heard extensive amount of testimony that says Harry McDonald needs to be brought up to collector road standards. But we don't know if we need to do that because we're going to study it. That's why I'm concerned we got the cart before the horse.
Yeah, so that condition says that if it does not meet the standard, then it would be improved through the subdivision agreement process with private development. So that would be more consistent of a plating action. Greg Soule with private development is here. He's the one who would actually be reviewing that. That department would be the one who would be reviewing our analysis of that and actually then facilitating the subdivision agreement to improve Harry McDonald if any improvements are required.
Without any further review by any commissions?
Yes.
And that's the part that I have a problem with. And that's what we're hearing, probably about 35% of the testimony tonight was centered around Harry McDonald Road. I hate to say, trust us, trust me, it will come. If we build it, it will be right. But again, we heard a lot of wavering from some legislative folks' intent and people with some knowledge of this that say, I don't have enough of the facts to get behind this. And right now, I don't think I have enough of the facts to know where this is going from a public health and safety standards, the parking issues at Harry McDonald Center. There's a lot of questions there that either it's written in to say, hey, it will be brought up to collector status. We can put that as a requirement in this approval. We can bypass all the studies. We'll tell you what it has to have to get past approval. Or we sit here and do nothing and say, we'll leave it to some other commission or some other process to make that decision.
Yes, sir. It's a typical comment that says resolve with the appropriate department. That's very common.
It is.
And that's why we have private development to do the review, to do the study, and then to require the upgrades that are appropriate and applicable.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But except that we heard about 35% of the public testimony against this topic zeroing in on this one item. And that's what I don't want to lose sight of. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Pullis.
I got an easy one. When was the last community council meeting? Was it September 2023? I'm just trying to figure out why people think it was a 20-foot road, you know, like how old that data is.
There were two, right? We went to two. I don't recall the date offhand, but I know that at one point, the first one, it was I don't remember if it was explicitly stated 20 feet, but we definitely stated that there was no on-street parking. And that's when, after that is when we kind of regathered and increased the road width to the 31 foot and 33 foot.
Yeah, and right now it's 31 foot back of curb to back of curb. So is it two 12-foot lanes and a shoulder, basically? Is that or is it two 10s and a 7-foot parking? What's
No,
that
so we have,
cross-section?
so there's two, the main Carroll Creek Drive is 33 foot back of curb. So that's the muni standard for parking
Yes.
on both sides. And then the private tracks are 31 foot back of curb to back of curb. So, 13 and a half foot lanes with 2-foot curb and gutter on either side.
Okay.
And generally, I know that one thing, having all of those, a couple hundred, 130 on-street spaces, if anything, will hopefully relieve any, pressure on a day like when Chugiak and Eagle River play each other hockey. I mean, having additional parking like that, I would think, can only help that type of situation.
I mean, I kind of agree, I'm a civil engineer, so I'd weigh in on some of this stuff, that you guys have 2 to 4 parking spots on site, no matter the size of the lot. You can have 2 inside, you can have 2 in the driveway. On the really little ones, you got 1 in the driveway, 1 in the garage. And then, in between all the driveways, you guys can park a car on the street. So the notion that there's no parking is not true, to my knowledge also. Just making that clear. I still struggle with snow storage, but, I mean, that's going to
go. Can we clarify the width of what is it, Harry McDonald Drive?
The pavement width?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the measurements I took were 23 foot to 27 foot, so that would meet a collector standard currently. It's also, I guess I would just state that, oftentimes we hear a lot of bias about something doesn't work or something is a concern, but it's really more of an engineering question, not this doesn't work because I think it gets really busy on certain days, I mean, so the fact is, like, a rural collector standard is really designed to support 10,000 trips per day, and this is, this development is under 1,000, well under, like, we're not even close to touching what a collector would normally sustain.
And so let me just ask a couple more. So 23 to 27 is a pretty wide. Is the section of the road, the physical flat section, is that what is the pavement just wavy, or
Yeah,
how
it's
do
just
we-
not totally consistent, which we see fairly often on strip paved. When that can vary, fairly common. Is probably a 24-foot, 2 12-foot lanes is what it was probably designed to or supposed to be built to. So it's a little bit shallow on some, and it's overpaved on others. They just cut the curve a little bit tight with their paver.
Okay, and then if condition 12, you go through the process, what do you expect would be an upgrade to this road? Like, what would we be talking about if it was determined the road wasn't good enough and it needed to be upgraded? What would we expect? Do you have any idea on that?
I mean, there's a number of components to that. There's the road section in terms of what it can actually support. There's the geometry, which we've already looked at just because we have survey data on it, and we feel pretty good about that. Really, it's at the discretion of private development in terms of what they will buy off on. There's obviously roads all over Eagle River that Eagle River Street Maintenance maintains that are in way worse shape than Harry McDonald is, just from observation. But yeah, ultimately that would be reviewed by private development.
Are any other further questions for the petitioners or?
Yeah, that's, actually, I do have, Andre, or Commissioner Spinelli, I can chime in one other item. You know that the special land use plan has a blurb in there about upgrading Harry McDonald through the TIPS plan or through AMATS, which it was applied for and it was denied because it didn't score high enough. But the cost of that road, just roughly estimate, what was it, it was $4.5 million for upgrading that. And I mean, if you just take a $4.5 million price tag and divide it by 115 units, I mean, it pretty quickly shows that you can't, I mean, then this development just doesn't happen, you know, or if it does, it's certainly not affordable housing. So there's a reason that the special land use plan put that in as going through AMATS, the TIPS program, because really an upgrade like that serves a school and the rec center should be publicly funded and not borne by a private developer.
Question for staff, can you just enlighten us on, you know, there's community, there's some, I'm guessing there's, like, I've heard questions from some of the commissioners. What are we talking about doing to this road to fix them? Do you have any information?
There we go. Thanks. Mr. Chair, thanks. Greg Soule, Private Development. We do not anticipate requiring them to build it to an urban collector standard. I think a rural collector standard is better suited for this area in terms of drainage and functionality and the average trips per day generated by this development. So the rural collector standard would still remain in place. So, and as you know, I have to see the survey, but if it's 24 feet wide with a separated pathway, that does meet the rural collector standard geometrically. In terms of how the road is constructed, the easiest way to know that would be to look at the record drawings from the construction. Unfortunately, those are unavailable. So it'll require some engineering investigation, which will include some soils investigation. And at that time, we'll see what's underneath the road, how it was built. Any upgrades would not be involve curb, gutter, or anything like that. It could involve, you know, beefing up the road section or a resurface. It just depends on what the soils investigation discovers.
But so generally speaking, the road somewhat meets the rural collector standard already. Granted, we don't know what's underneath it, but the 24-foot wide that Mr. Matthews indicated, there's a 23 to 27, that, and you said the rural collector is a 24-foot wide standard. So generally speaking, it's pretty close to what you would require.
Through, Mr. Chair, yes, the geometry is, yes.
Thank you. That's Commissioner Pullis has a question.
And just to carry on with that, will the requirement be to do the whole road or just to the point that they're accessing to? What's the code there?
Through the chair, Mr. Pullis, it looks like we're only dedicating right-of-way up to basically adjacent to the ASD tract. So it would basically be that far, which is essentially to their entrance to, I think it's going to be called Carroll Creek Drive.
Yeah. Okay. Which is normal in my experience. I'm just pointing that out.
Okay. I see no more questions. Anybody have any questions before we close the public hearing? See none. Oh.
And Mr. Chair, to the commission, I'd like to just make mention that Greg Soule, Private Development Manager, Acting Development Services Director, Randy Ribble, Traffic Engineer, and Mike Braniff, Parks Director, are here representing their departments. And I know you've already heard from Greg. I just want to make mention those other two gentlemen here also to answer any questions that you may have about this development. Thank you.
Commissioner George has a question.
Thank you, through the chair. Just real quick clarification on the department recommendations for the S12-738, specifically page 17 in the packet. Number 9 says resolve with Eagle River Street Maintenance the following. Little 3, the need to provide no parking signs on any dedicated right-of-way within the new development and Harry McDonald Drive. I'm wondering if we can get a little more clarification by what exactly is meant by that. I know that what I'm hearing from my fellow commissioners is that a significant portion of the hesitation on this item has to do with the Harry McDonald Drive itself, more so than really the development or the variances. And I think that anything we can do to add some clarification would be helpful. I know that we have some community council resolutions, and I think one of them specifically asked for no parking along that. And I'm just wondering if this is making that a condition, or it talks about dedicated right-of-way within the development. Is that also Carroll Creek Drive that has no parking signs, or what exactly is meant here? Thank you.
Through the chair, Mr. George, good questions. I think the comments that Eagle River Street Maintenance has with respect to signage is for Carroll Creek Road, and I think that is primarily due to initially the reduced width of the road, in addition to street maintenance's concern with driveway widths. And so I think that some of that has been resolved by some minor changes to the roadway. However, what you see in the staff packet are resolved comments so that that can be presented to Eagle River Street Maintenance to get their buy-off following any action that the commission might take tonight.
To the chair, so my hope is that we will have a motion at some point, and that we will make recommendations pursuant to the staff packet. And so I'm just hoping for clarification. If we do make a recommendation that talks about including no parking signs, particularly on Carroll Creek Drive, if those concerns have been resolved by widening Carroll Creek Drive, maybe we ought to establish that. But from what I'm hearing from the petitioners is there's 130 on-street parking spaces in this development, which I imagine are largely on Carroll Creek Drive. And so I would hesitate to use the exact wording in this packet to forward our recommendations if they say install no parking signs on Carroll Creek Drive. Thank you.
Does the petitioner have comments on the no parking signs?
Yeah, so through the chair, I think that generally Mr. Whitfield is correct that this comment is a little bit of a spillover from the initial thought that there would not be on-street parking and that driveway widths would be too wide. Both of those concerns have really been addressed with the, limiting driveway widths to 14 foot to 20 foot and then also providing the additional width. Obviously, snow removal and snow storage is difficult with on-street parking, but that is just part of living in a municipality. I think that, it is left, the way the comment is left is resolved with Eagle River Street Maintenance. And I think that we can resolve it with them after, even if these conditions are approved, we can still resolve that with them. The board could also choose to eliminate that condition and we would be fine with that, but I think we can resolve it with them. So either way.
Commissioner Strike.
Yes, and thank you. I'm going to take exception to the staff's comments. I disagree that this is resolved previously based on the very notion of what this statement says, and I appreciate the fellow commissioner bringing this up. The need to provide no parking signs on any dedicated right-of-way within the new development and Harry McDonald Drive. There were two issues there, two items. And the testimony we heard tonight was the excessive parking that took place on Harry McDonald Drive currently, taking a 24-foot wide rural collector. In the wintertime, people are parking there. They're using that as a parking area to attend events. Now let's reduce this down. How wide was that road in January? That road wasn't 24 feet wide in January, I guarantee it. It got reduced with winter. And so this again, this notion here that it was taken care of and that it's resolved, and all we did was talk about what was happening up in the planned development. I don't have a concern with up in the planned development. I have a problem with the Harry McDonald Road portion. And the conversations I'm hearing make me even more concerned because we're reading into things that aren't there. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commission? Does the petitioner have any comments on what was just said?
Through the chair, Mr. Chair Spinelli, this is Brandon Marcotte with Trident Engineering. I think if we had our choice with these comments, I think personally we would be fine with signing Harry McDonald no parking. I think that's kind of a non-issue for us. If Harry McDonald needs to be signed no parking, we're fine with that. Internally to the project, we were counting on the wider streets to solve the comments regarding parking concerns. So we heard from the community about narrow roads. We widened them on purpose to provide more than enough parking. Hopefully that wouldn't affect Harry McDonald, but if there's still that concern regarding parking on Harry McDonald, we'd be more than happy with signing Harry McDonald as no parking. Just wanted to add some clarity to that comment.
Thank you. I'm getting ready to close the public hearing unless anybody has anything further.
Through the chair, I believe Randy Ribble, traffic engineer, has a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Ribble.
Through the chair, Randy Ribble, assistant traffic engineer, to try to address the parking concerns. While Eagle River Maintenance may request it, it will be up to the municipal traffic department to determine if we have a parking issue and if additional signage should be required. This is the first time we've heard that, and if signs are placed and they do have the no parking, there will be parking along Harry McDonald Road when the game is going on because there's insufficient parking spaces at the rec center to support it. So we would evaluate that at the time when the development comes in, and depending on the conditions that might be placed by either this commission or private development, we would determine if additional signage is required at the time of development along the roadway.
Thank you. Okay, we are closing the public hearing, going in 3, 2, 1. What is the will of the body? I will remind you that I would suggest we take up the plating case first, S12738, and we will need a separate motion for each variance, a separate motion for the phasing plan, and a separate motion for that plat itself. Commissioner Pullis, would you like to state your motion?
I move in case S12738 to approve a variance from AMC 2108-040A.1 dedication streets to dedicate tracks for private roads rather than dedicate right-of-way, subject to the conditions shown on page 15 of the staff report.
That's seconded by Commissioner Krishna. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure. This is kind of a slippery slope for me. I've built some subdivisions in Eagle River on the side of a mountain, so I understand the need to control costs of building roads on the side of mountains. I understand that part. I kind of see, I think one of the biggest issues in my head that is remaining is still kind of the snow storage and this length of fire road stuff, but the fire department has signed off on it, so I'm going to let them do their job there. The last thing I will say that we did not discuss is that this subdivision I do feel meets the planning requirements. Word by word, dwellings with ADUs, all that stuff. But the thing we did not discuss is the little notion of cost sharing. I don't know how you get that into the system, but if you're going around reducing road requirements and have no way to assume that anybody's getting any benefit of it, I think that needs to be discussed in planning and a way to deal with that. If we're reducing roads and letting developers do this work, we need to have some way to understand that the housing developments are getting a benefit from that. Also, what I said was, you know, there's no houses available in Eagle River, and we can't say that this isn't an economical development. So I get that too, but cost sharing, those kind of things are something I think we should start thinking about if we're going to start reducing road widths for, you know, housing costs. We need to be able to prove that. That's what I got.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? I intend to support the motion. I think private roads are very common, especially in Eagle River residential developments. And with the concern for snow storage, having a private road handled by an HOA, the people pay money to have their road right in front of their house plowed. It's managed by the 100 houses on the street. They can choose how to deal with that snow better than anybody, and they can afford to pay to haul it off if they had to. So I think that there is a problem there, but the solution lies with the people on that street. So, and I think private roads are a good way to get to that. Commissioner George.
Thank you. Through the chair, my comments are broadly applicable to basically everything we're about to take up. So I don't know if cut and paste is necessary, but I just want to put some of this on the record. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about actually approving a housing development. I think it's nice to actually see something like that come before us. This is the most significant item I've seen in a year being on this board. It's a little bit refreshing in that regard. I think only getting 115 units of housing from the development of this parcel is truly the bare minimum of what we could be doing. You know, we've had so many discussions about density in Anchorage overall, and you know, this was rezoned to CE2 or R2M recently, which is supposed to be 7 to 15 dwelling units per acre. I think that we're getting 3.8 out of it, and R2M in Anchorage was recently moved up to 22. So I think getting at least 115 units out of it is great. But, you know, there was some public testimony. I listened and read to the public testimony, and I appreciate everyone who came out and shared. And there was one thing that did resonate with me, and that was that, you know, the developer's proposal to submit a plan to construct exclusively single-family residence homes is not necessarily a valid reason to receive a variance from subdivision requirements that are in code. And so I kind of thought about that a little bit. You know, there's a plan that's been approved by the community with quite a bit of work that went into it. There's a plat, and there's been, you know, multiple community councils that have spent a lot of time on this, and folks that have put work into this clearly to try and develop what they would like to see as a vision for the long-term goal of this area. And the developer's proposal to build exclusively single-family homes through a PUD is one way to get the density that has been prescribed, but there are other types of housing that could have achieved this density without having to go down this road, namely townhouse, multifamily, and others. And so part of why we're here is sort of due to the choices of the petitioner. And I think that that is something that just kind of resonated with me. So for what it's worth, I wanted to put it on the record again. I do have concerns with some of the snow storage and the narrow lot frontages. That one, I think, was one of the largest concerns that stuck out to me personally. I'm at peace and comfortable with granting the variance for the lot widths. I think a 10-foot separation distance, if it's appropriate in other parts of the city, I don't see any reason why it's not appropriate here in this subdivision. The rolled curb and gutter, I think that I'm willing to support that portion of it, but you know, I appreciated also the opportunity to talk about real data and housing. You know, if these are truly going to be housing builds that are in the $400,000 range, you know, I checked the MLS. There are 0 condos for sale in all of Eagle River, Chugiak, and Peters Creek right now. There's not a single condo you can buy that's for sale existing. and there are only 14 single-family homes, and that's everything from 275,000 to 2.1 million. There's two of them that are under 425,000. Two houses you can buy in Eagle River and Chugiak that are under 425,000 right now. That's mind-blowing, existing. So I hope that housing can be built at this cost, but I'm a realist too, and I know many people at this table have built housing in Anchorage, and I suspect it'll probably come in higher. But, I'm hopeful, so thank you.
Okay, I remind everybody, this is just a variance. Number one, there's 6 more motions involved with this case tonight, so. I see nobody in the queue. I will call for the vote. All right, that motion passes. All right, we have another motion in the queue, moved by Commissioner Pullis. Would you like to state your motion?
I move in case S12738 to approve a variance from ANC 21.08.050G curbs and gutters to provide a sidewalk on one side of the cul-de-sac stem, subject to conditions shown on page 15 of the staff report.
That's seconded by Commissioner Strike. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I can support this motion. I have actually stood on the other side of this before and supported type 1, but I think the density in this street and the sidewalks going up and down at every driveway will make the pedestrian use just, not fun. So I do support the type 2 curb and gutter in this division because of the density of the houses.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? I will call for the vote. Motion passes. Next up is a motion for the phasing plan. We have a motion out there. Commissioner Pullis, would you like to state your motion?
I move in case S12738 to approve the phasing plan, subject to conditions shown on page 15 of the staff report.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Honestly, I don't have a strong opinion on this one, but I do know the fire department said they're going to work out their issues on the plan, and I'm going to trust in them on that, and that should, control the phasing plan. So that's my comment there.
I intend to support, and I have good faith in the permitting process that will follow any approvals, that the issues will be resolved. Call for the vote. The motion passed. Next, we will have a motion for the plat. Even if you weren't intending to support it, you could still move it for discussion purposes. Commissioner Strike, would you like to state your motion?
Thank you. To move this along, I move in case S12738 to approve the plat for a 60-month phased, subject to the conditions shown on pages 15 through 19 of the staff report with the striking of condition number 10.
That's seconded by Commissioner Pulis. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I do plan to support this motion, and I think it's spelled out with the conditions that the staff, in the staff report.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion?
I'll add something.
Go ahead.
I'll just add that, I stood on both lines of this, the way that the community was talking about it at times, and then the way the developer's talking about at times. But when I go through these items that it says right here that they're trying to do, they literally check it off by word, and I couldn't convince myself differently when I read through the whole packet and understood everything. This community literally said, let's limit this development to 115 lots. They did something that made it, and we all said that they're not meeting the requirements, but they're following this bullet point list right here on this page 3. So, I just want to point it out that while we argued that they didn't, I think most of us here feel that they did meet those plan requirements. So I'm just adding to that.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion to subdivide the lots? Commissioner George.
Thank you. This may be a question for the department, just to clarify. There was mention, I can't remember where in the packet, about needing a drainage or culvert of some kind across Harry McDonald to, I can't remember which lot number it was. I wanted to make sure that that was on here. I want to say it was around somewhere between 78 and 84, I think. Is that included within the plat notes as it was requested?
I'll just clarify that drainage design will be part of the civil engineering permit plan review, and so every culvert and requirement, of which there are thousands, can't be listed as a specific condition of plat. I don't think so. Unless staff had anything to add to that?
Mr. Chair, nothing to add. Those will be resolved during plan review.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? I will add that I intend to support the motion. I will just highlight the condition 12, that staff again will, and the design team will review the Harry McDonald Drive. That's probably the number one concern for me on this development. And it's what we've heard the most about from the public, and I think that what the final outcome there remains to be seen, and I trust in the process that the municipality will, the design team will do what it needs to be done. Call for the vote. That motion passes. Okay, we will move on to case 2023-0080. This is the request for the conditional use, and we need two motions on this. We'll start with the variance. Suggested motion is on the table. Moved by Commissioner Ron. Would you like to state your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move in case 2023-0080 to approve a variance from AMC 21.07.110G.2.C.V design to allow a building to be separated by a minimum of 10 feet.
That is seconded by Commissioner George. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Just concur with staff's findings in the staff packet regarding this item, and I intend to support the motion.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? I'll just add that I also intend to support the motion. This seems to be industry standard for single-family subdivision in using a PUD. Call for the vote. That motion passes. This is the motion for the conditional use for the residential planned unit development. Commissioner Pullis, would you like to state your motion?
I move in case 2023-0080 to approve a conditional use for a residential plan unit development, subject to the conditions shown on page 18 of the staff report.
That's seconded by Commissioner Strike. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I think we've gone through all this stuff quite a bit to show that it does meet the requirements for the conditional uses. And then I'm going to go back to my comment earlier that was on the wrong staff packet because we're approving 7 of these and I got confused. I think they did a great job of meeting the planning intent. Again, there's some stuff laid out here. This is the plan intent. They literally did it word by word as far as I can tell. So I'm just struggling with the public, saying the opposite. So I feel for that, but the way I interpret it, they basically hit the bullet points. So that's that.
Commissioner Krishna.
Yeah, I also intend to support the motion, but I do want to thank the members of the public who showed up today to testify and to take the time to read through this very, very large packet and to familiarize themselves with this project. This isn't the end of the road. This will go to the assembly, so I hope you stay engaged in the process and reach out to your elected officials and continue to make your voices heard. And I do hope that the project team continues to engage with these community councils, because we did hear a lot of comments today about folks who weren't familiar with the most recent designs, and hopefully that assuages some of the community concerns. But I do intend to support the motion.
Through the chair, real quick if I could, Ms. Krishna, I appreciate your comments. One clarification, however, is this is the Planning and Zoning Commission on these 2 cases are the decision-making body. This does not go to the assembly. So this would be the last opportunity for the public to participate in a public meeting with respect to this case.
My apologies. Well, I do appreciate all of the time that the public has taken to make their voices heard throughout this process that started many, many years ago.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Motion passes. Any commissioner comments? Or a motion?
I got
to-
one.
Go for it.
Planning staff, cost sharing. I don't know how we get that into this stuff, but it's something to think about, I think. If we're reducing roadway widths and giving it to developers.
I've said it publicly a
Okay.
lot, so, yeah.
Awesome.
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?